I'm joined by my colleague now, Sky News political editor, Andrew Clennell. Andrew, thank you as always. Great to have you. It's a Tuesday, busy day in Parliament. A big feature of question time, obviously this High Court decision last week overturning a 20-year-old precedent. Let's start there if we can. We've got all of these people out in the community, many of them with pretty horrific criminal history. We don't know all the details. We don't know their names. We don't know where they are. We do know, though, a little bit more today. There are three murderers, a number of pedophiles. I'll get into the detail in a moment with the Shadow Immigration Minister, Dan Tehan. But the government now has an offer from the opposition leader. Put the legislation on the table. We'll close this loophole. We'll fix it by Christmas. Surely they've got to see, in political terms, they've got to fix this quickly.
Yeah, I think the key you've got a phrase there from you is in political terms. I mean, it's just 101, this stuff, isn't it? So you've got Andrew Giles, the Immigration Minister, up there saying, well, the High Court did this, there's not much we can do, but we're monitoring them. Does that really cut the mustard? I mean, I was mentioning this on Sunday Agenda as a really big potential issue for the government, one they needed to deal with this week. And I would have thought legislation is just an obvious one on this. It's really just a huge opening here for Peter Dutton, and I suspect they'll continue to suffer over this issue for a number of weeks until they get a bit more hard line on it. I think the concern out of this is that they say they're waiting for the full decision and reasons of the High Court. No doubt that's the advice from bureaucrats, but you can act earlier. And, you know, that indicates they're only going to act on reinstating the possibility of indefinite detention. It sounds like the 80 have flown in terms of the ones who've come out. And we're seeing daily press stories revealing the identities and the offences of these people, and that will continue to happen. So, look, we haven't had any boats in the 18 months. So the issue's kind of gone to sleep for a while on border control.
we don't need the boats.
Here isn't. No,
we don't need the boats. We've got 75,000 on planes.
Yeah, and there were plenty of asylum seekers by plane under the coalition as well. But the point is, if border control hasn't been front and centre, here's the week where it could potentially start to take off. And I do think, in political terms, in reaction terms, and potentially in policy terms, they were flat-footed today, the government. It doesn't help when the Prime Minister's been out of the country so much and he's going out again. It's not his full focus, if you know what I mean.
And look, I might add, in terms of legislative detail, I have seen in my time terror legislation introduced on the back of a judgment without the decision being finalised through the Parliament expeditiously, with the support of both sides, of the major parties at least, to deal with these sorts of quirks and loopholes in the law. So it has been done before. It takes will. I think my concern is this is the final sitting fortnight of the year. They won't return until sometime in February. And in that period, you've got, 8 weeks where this will escalate in, I think, a pretty terrible way, and it'll be a focus for the community. Let's go to this issue of the Qatar Airways bid for more flights in and out of Australia. Of course, they didn't get it. Opposition from Qantas, the government knocked it back. You've been pursuing this pretty hard with FOIs. I'll get to that detail in a moment, but an interesting interview from the Minister responsible, Transport Minister Catherine King today, and a whole lot of what I'd regard as world-class stonewalling. Have a listen.
These are bilateral agreements. They are bilateral agreements, bilateral agreements. They are bilateral agreements. This is a bilateral agreement. And these are bilateral service agreements. I'll repeat it again. These are bilateral arrangements between countries.
You're a dog with a bone, Andrew Clennell. What's the latest?
Well, we put in an FOI asking for any departmental advice to the Minister in connection with this attempt by Qatar Airways to have 28 extra flights a week into Australia, something which would lower airfares. And we set the date at 1st of January 2023. That turned out pretty lucky, because we were able to reveal from that there was a ministerial submission, departmental advice to the Minister on January 4 this year. She then knocked back the proposal for extra flights in July. That took 6 months for some reason. They won't give us the advice. She won't deny the advice says let the flights happen, which tells you something, I think. And they say it would damage our relations with Qatar if they release the information, and DFAT says so as well, the Department of Foreign Affairs. Is it the case they think it would damage our relations with Qatar because the Qatari government, who owns the airline, would find out the department actually said go ahead with the extra flights? That's certainly one possibility that comes out of this. So I hope this gets a bit of a run in question time the rest of the week. I don't think the government should get away with this. They came to power talking about transparency and accountability, but like all oppositions or most oppositions who say that, when it comes to government, it's the Yes Minister approach comes over and it's an entirely different matter. I just think it's quite clear here the departmental advice was let the flights in. We then need to know the reason why the Minister changed their mind. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with the Minister overruling departmental advice, although a lot of Australians wouldn't agree with this decision. So why not come clean and say that was their advice? We had subsequent thoughts because of this reason.
I disagreed. I did something else.
Instead of just saying... Yeah, exactly. I mean, truth is the best defence often, Peter.
100%, 100%. Hey, Russell Broadband, been in the party 25 years, been in the Parliament for the Liberal Party for 25 years. He represents a seat, it's called Monash. It was called something else at one time, I think Macmillan, down in Victoria, dumped on the weekend by his local branches. What I said was 161 votes to the woman who won it. Mary Aldred is her name. He had 16. I have to say, as a Lib, I'm pretty dismayed with his response. The party says, look, we need more women. Aldred runs on merit. There's no quota in the Liberal Party. She absolutely smashes it. And then come Tuesday, the bloke spits the dummy and quits the Liberal Party. But it's got a big impact, hasn't it, on the composition of the House of Reps?
Ignominious end, really, isn't it? And totally unnecessary. He was elected for the 3 years for the Liberal Party. Serve that out in honour of your electorate. You say the members have rejected me. Well, yes, they have for the next election, but the electorate voted you in. So I think it's a BS argument, to be honest with you, Peter. It is a dummy spit, as one senior Liberal described it. And yeah, after Andrew Gee left the Nationals, he said the Voice, and then his electorate voted overwhelmingly against the Voice. They've only got 55 in the chamber of 151 now, the coalition. There are a staggering 18 crossbenchers. Have there been that many since Federation? There haven't been that many, in the time I've been alive, I don't think. So that is an extraordinary situation for the federal parliament, and it lends itself to the theory that we get a minority parliament after the next election. I reckon that's odds on if you're having a bet at the moment where the political situation is.
Oh, God, I've still got nightmares from the last one. I don't want to go there again.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid we're headed there. Look at that. I mean, look, Monash will go to major party, most likely Liberals, because Broadband won't run as an independent. He wouldn't have a show anyway. But there's another 17 seats there to worry about if you don't like a big crossbench.
Right, it'll be an interesting election night whenever that happens. You'll be there, I'll be there. We'll see what it looks like after then. Andrew Clennell, thank you as always.